I will now call to order the Monday, December 19th, 2011 informational meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council. Welcome to all of you here at Carnegie Hall and those that are watching us on Channel 16 or at siouxfalls.org. We'll begin today with a staff report from Interim City Clerk Sue Roust.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things for you today. One, Bob O'Connell from the Chamber of Commerce just gave me copies of the Chamber's legislative platform for 2012, and we've placed them in your box in the office for you. They include the dates of the legislative coffees, so you'll want to take a look at that. I did want to remind you that the Breakfast Club is this Wednesday morning at 7:30 at Leonardo's. That is the opportunity for the city, the counties, and the school districts to present legislative agendas to the legislators, and so I hope many of you will be able to attend. The one other thing you have at your places today is something that I'm really pleased with that staff in the clerk's office have put together in the last week, a trifold brochure of 2012 election information. This is information that's been available in various places in the various books that are handed out, but I think this is going to be a very useful piece to give to anybody who's got general interest in election topics, in dates and schedules, and what needs to be done to be a candidate, what your campaign finance deadlines are, and so on, and a lot of other information about what many common questions people ask about the council. We aren't going to post this on the website until the decision is made on whether you will have Monday or Tuesday meetings, and that's why it's stamped draft all over it. But we did want to show it to you. If people come to our office now, we will be handing these out with the caveat that we can't tell them for sure what night council will be meeting, but the rest of the information is there. And I was just really pleased with how that came out and wanted to share that with you. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Roust? If not, thanks, Sue. Public Services Committee, Councilor Erpenbach will give that report.
Just briefly, in place of the committee chair, Councilor Anderson, we ran through several items, worked pretty hard on both the naming rights ordinance for not only the event center but other buildings that are owned by the city. And that will go through the attorney's office and come back through Darren as the naming rights sort of guru for now. And then the other one that we looked at was a review of the ordinance moving as Mrs. Roust referred to, moving our meetings to Tuesday nights from Mondays. We kind of pulled that apart bit by bit, and I think that we went ahead and we moved it to full council, so we'll be seeing that in the next couple of meetings. So that was it for that committee. Thank you.
Any questions? If not, thank you, Michelle. I'm going to delay City Council open discussion and start presentations. Councilor Anderson Jr. is detained, and he did have something that he wanted discussed. So we'll come back to City Council open discussion after our presentations. And we'll begin today with the review of transit customer service audit, and we have Deborah Gajkowski and Karen Walton. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Karen Walton, Sioux Area Metro. I think I'm going to take half of this, and Deborah's going to take the other half. I want to start off with, we have it on the screen up there, the customer service audit. The City of Sioux Falls and Sioux Area Metro is committed to providing a public transit system that is professional, well-trained, safe, and practices excellent customer service. The City of Sioux Falls requested that First Transit conduct a customer service audit. This audit was performed on 30 routes during the week of October 24th. It was done in the process of a secret shopper, and this is a person who was trained to review several areas of transit. There were about 30 routes, as I've said, that were actually looked at. These were the headings of the different areas that the auditor looked at, and I'm just going to kind of give you kind of a brief summary of the report. Starting off with driving skills. Driving skills looked at things such as obeying the lights, looking left and right at intersections, driving at safe speeds, making legal turns, driving with both hands, things of that nature. Over 90% of our drivers at that particular time when they were audited practiced excellent skills in this particular area. The only thing that we looked at that we thought was minor is there was a minor number of rolling stops at the railroad crossings or pauses. I'm not real sure what the difference between a pause and a stop is, but this is something that we like the bus to cope to a complete stop. Every month we have a week-long worth of safety meetings so that all of our employees can hit these, and we addressed them last week at this time. The next thing we looked at was safety observations. These are things such as using seat belts, not using cell phones, using caution for pedestrians, school zones and construction zones. We had over 90% in that particular area. The only items that we seen that we needed to probably address was there was a couple instances of the drivers that were opening the doors just prior to the bus coming to a complete stop when they pulled into bus stops. Once again, we brought that up at our safety meetings, talking about the importance of making sure that bus was at a complete stop before they opened up the back doors. Bus stop, servicing the bus stops. These are things such as using appropriate speed when entering the stops, stopping at all requested stops, stopping for all weighted passengers, signaling when entering and exiting stops, things like that. We had over 97% compliance in all of those areas. There was no items to address in that particular area. Passenger relations. This has to do with how the drivers actually deal with the passengers. Things like greeting passengers when they were boarding, thanking them upon exiting, speaking to them, offering special assistance if necessary, and things like making sure that the schedules were always in stock on the buses. We had over 90% of our drivers got a rating of good or better in customer service. We had 2 drivers that had fair ratings, but one of the things that I had noticed was both of those drivers were English as a second language, and this was just something I knew that maybe perhaps that the auditor didn't know. ADA compliance, 100% using ramp or lift when needed, 97% kneeling the buses. This is not something that's required by ADA. It's something kind of that I require, that every time we pull up to a bus stop that we immediately kneel the bus because we don't know if there's a hidden disability. I think we had one person who didn't kneel the bus. We addressed it with him. Announcing stops to passengers. This is an ADA requirement. We had 75% compliance. Now, obviously, this is not the 100% that I want, but it's definitely better than the 35% compliance that nationally bus drivers are in line with. For some reason, this is just the bane of bus drivers' existence, but this is something we continuously work on. Things like the operators wearing clean uniforms, the interior and exterior of the buses being clean, and the mechanical shapes of the buses, we had 100% compliance on. I'm very proud of my maintenance department and my utility people in that area. And schedule adherence, we had 93% buses departing on time, 80% buses arriving on time. In looking at this, we had some potential causes for delays at that time. There was road construction going on 41st between Minnesota and Western between 6th and Russell. There was some road construction going on at the time, and road construction just kind of messes with our schedule a little bit. But overall, 93% of the buses leaving on time is a pretty good deal. Does anybody have any questions about the customer service audit? We didn't see any red flags at all.
Okay. Questions for Karen? If not, thank you, Karen.
Okay. The next thing I want to talk about real quickly is the ridership. Our ridership has been just exceptional this entire year. Our fixed route ridership for the year, and when I'm talking about these numbers, I'm talking through the end of November, so we have another month to go. Our fixed route ridership is up 6% for the entire year, which actually beats out our paratransit ridership, which is up 5.5%. That's almost unheard of, that fixed route is going, faster than the paratransit is. The last 5 months, though, is what's really truly amazing. Our fixed route ridership over the last 5 months is up 13%. There's probably a lot of reasons for this. Obviously, the economy is doing well. 2/3 of rides on transit is usually due to jobs or job-related, like childcare. The route improvements that we went through, the route improvements were just absolutely wonderful, and I have to thank the drivers committee for that because they really scrutinized each one of these routes with a fine-tuned comb, and we made some great changes. And obviously, we got a lot of press because of these route changes, so there was some pretty good free marketing in there for us also. Routes 10, 11, and 12, I think, is probably what got the most press. There was some issues with getting rid of Route 12. But when we got rid of Route 12, we didn't just take those resources and put them away. We actually put them back into the system. And we bulked up Routes 10 and 11. And for the month of November, when you compare the ridership for Routes 10, 11, and 12 for last year, and you compare them to just the new 10 and 11 this year, our ridership is up 7% in those particular areas. And just to kind of give you an idea of where we're getting the most need from, Route 19, which is the northwest part of the city, I think it's in Mr. Karski's area there, our ridership is up 45%. And this is actually not a good route. We only run like 6 times a day and nothing on Saturdays. And Route 8, which is in the north industrial area, we don't have Saturday service area either, but that ridership is up 23%. So our ridership is just going absolutely great. We're well over 1 million now, and we're probably over last year's record already, and we still got a couple weeks left. Okay.
Any questions on ridership for Karen?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Jameson?
Sorry, I beat Rex to it.
Yeah, look at it.
That 45% increase in the Northwest, have you got any indication of how that created it? I mean, how did it come from?
It was already continuously going up, but we actually tweaked the route enough where we extended up to Innovation Avenue, and there's actually some apartment buildings up there. We have a lot of requests for service even further north, but we just don't have the resources to do it right now. But I think just adding those couple apartment buildings and tweaking that a little bit is really what made it take off.
And then how did they know that you were even coming in front of their building? How did they know that?
Well, we've talked to the apartment managers, and there was just a lot of press on this. I think anybody who was looking for transit, especially up in this area, looked, and the word just got out.
I just think that that's pretty unique that we could actually go out and generate a new group of customers like that. That's a big deal. Thank you.
Councilor Rolfing?
I read with interest in the paper, 2 Sundays ago, about our increase in ridership, which was good, but that it fell far below what other comparable cities have been doing.
Yeah, that was wrong.
That was wrong. Okay, that's why I'm asking.
Yes. I actually, when I was talking to the reporter,
wait a minute.
Okay.
Wrong?
It was out and out wrong. When I was talking to the reporter, I told him that when I was talking about Fargo's university students are actually far surpassing ours. They have UPass programs and such. But nationally, our ridership nationally is on about a 2% to 3% increase, and we're on a 6% increase. So I think he was kind of confused when he wrote that.
Okay.
Councilor Karski?
Thank you. I just want to clarify, that was Route 19?
Yes.
Okay, I was just looking at the map, and can you get off 19 and get on 6 if you wanted to? Is that possible, or?
Yeah, it goes
because
from
19 comes right back basically to 12th Street.
It goes to our downtown bus stop.
Yep.
Yeah, it goes and it loops up around STI. Was it STI? Yes, STI and those apartments, and it comes right back down to our main transfer center where they can transfer to other routes.
Okay, I'm just looking at that and thinking, kind of like Councilor Jameson said, who are those customers? And where are they going when we see that kind of an increase? That would be an interesting demographic to look at, I guess.
Esurance and Citibank, or is it Esurance and what is the other one? Citibank? No. Premier. I'm sorry, Premier. They talk to us on a regular basis that they want bus service up there. It's just kind of not in our budget right now.
So we're not even hitting those?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Karen? Thank you, Karen. Welcome, Deborah.
Hi, good afternoon. Deborah Gaikowski, Transit Planner. Just a note on those apartment buildings in the Northwest, I'm pretty sure that they're HUD facilities too, and they were asking us for service, so that was definitely a benefit for them. I'm here to talk a little bit about the transit system analysis. I think you're all pretty familiar with that study. It's to evaluate changing our operations from a hub and spoke or a radial type system to a grid system, either that or a combination of both a grid and a hub and spoke. We have signed a contract with a consultant, URS, out of Omaha. 80% of the costs of that study are paid for through MPO planning funds, so the city's responsible for about 20% of it. So the transit system analysis, basically the whole purpose is to see if we can provide our services more efficiently, but mainly to see if we could reach out to some of those areas that we're not getting out to right now. When you have the hub and spoke type system, you're coming from a central point, and the further the city goes out, the longer it takes for the bus to get out there and to get back to the transfer station. So, and the longer your routes, the ridership has a tendency to go down because it's just not as convenient for the passengers. So the consultant right now is in the process of collecting data on our current system, and then they'll take that data and analyze it, and then put together kind of a mock system, a grid type system, and compare it with our system right now just to see if it would be more efficient or not. Just doing this study, there's no guarantee that it's going to work. I mean, perhaps the system we have now is going to be much better. So it's their job to tell us if changes can be made in a positive manner to make our system more efficient, like I said. Any questions on the transit system analysis? We do expect a final report in about April or May of 2012.
Questions? Councilor Brown.
Deborah, thanks for being here. What is the total cost of the study? And
$80,000.
thank you.
And the contract actually is through CCOG, Southeastern Council of Governments.
Other questions?
Okay, and then the next thing I'd like to talk about is our fare analysis. Kind of coinciding with our transit system analysis, we're going to be looking at our fares. It was 1995 was the last time we looked at our fares. If you recall, we did the transit audit here a few months ago, and one of the recommendations was to look at our fares. We're not going to hire a consultant or anything like that to do it. It's going to be in-house in the planning department. Of course, we'll use the information and services of the transit management to help us through that. They also have resources where they can get what other communities have done and how they looked at their fares. So we start out, we look at our current fare structure, where we're at now, and then we take a look at where are we selling our passes. Are we selling passes, or are we selling more single rides when people get on and pay a cash fare? Because all of that has a great amount to do with the revenue that we generate. So if you change, a lot of your revenue is coming from your monthly pass, but you change the single ride, then of course that's not the best way to do it, and that's not the best way of increasing your revenue. So those are some of the things we're looking at. We're also looking at comparing to other communities of comparable size. So we've got several communities already that we've taken a look at. Eventually we'll work that into the report, and it'll help us decide whether we're too low, whether it's time to increase some of our fares or what. So, and then we also have to look at the impact on the users. When we did our long-range transportation plan, they did a survey and found that a good majority of our riders are transit dependent, basically telling you they're in the lower income bracket. So any increase in fares is going to increase the riders, and possibly in a negative way. So we really need to take a look at that too. And a lot of times if you increase your rates a little too high, it can have a negative impact on your ridership, which would be contrary to what we're trying to achieve here, a greater revenue source. So we really have to be careful on how we take a look at all of that. So that's the next study or analysis we're going to do, and I can take any questions on that.
Questions? Doesn't look like there are any, Deborah.
Okay. The next thing I just want to touch on a little bit is the ADA transition plan. This is a citywide plan, but transit happened to be the first area that the consultant reviewed. The consultant is from the East Coast, Peter Blank Group. So they came 2 times. They came, conducted some open houses to gather information. They were out there at the bus stops, riding the buses. They took riders with them. They took transit staff with them, reviewed just all aspects of the transit system. Just got some preliminary suggestions so far. We don't have the final report yet, but they did talk a lot about our bus stops. And right now, we have a tendency to wait until we hear a complaint about our bus stop, maybe some sidewalk that's dropped a little bit, so now you've got a lip that a wheelchair can't get over. So they suggested perhaps putting in some type of procedure or process to review our bus stops on a regular basis using our transit staff to do that. So we definitely will be moving forward with that. Some organizational integration, having more conversations with other departments. It makes it a lot easier to make some changes and modifications if you're working with, say, the engineering department on concrete bids and things like that. We do some of that now, but I think there could be more of that going on. Signage is another thing. We hear a lot about our signage. Right now, it is basically a sign telling drivers not to park there, and then the people just have to pick up that this is where the bus stop is. So it's not very convenient for those with visual impairments, things like that. So we'd really like to improve our signage and make that part of a capital improvements program in the near future. And then just overall communication, dealing with some other agencies and organizations for the visually impaired or other disabilities, working with them to understand better ways of improving our stops and things like that for accessibility. So that would be another suggestion by the consultant. But again, we'll see his final report on the transit part in the next couple of months. I can take any questions on that.
Questions, Council? I don't see any.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you both. Next, under presentations, we have the November monthly financial report by Director Turbeck.
Good afternoon. As I do each month, I want to take you through a few of the economic indicators that we track in the finance department, and then we'll do some overview of the general fund budget and update you on that through the month of November. As I do each month, this is the unemployment for the Sioux Falls Metropolitan Statistical Area. You can see the green line is 2011. That has continued to improve pretty steadily throughout 2011, and as I mentioned briefly in my report in late November, it did drop again in October to 3.9%. Now the November statistics are not posted yet on the state website, but that's certainly a very solid unemployment figure. I did look at the actual employment numbers. Sometimes those don't necessarily track with the unemployment rate. But as of October of 2011, we had a little more than 2,000 more people working than we did a year ago. So those the employment numbers are improving along with the unemployment rate itself. Building permit data, again, it's a little bit difficult to discern just exactly where the trend is, and this particular chart does, I think, give you some idea of how seasonal building permit issuances are in terms of values. However, one of the key things from this chart is the year-to-date value of permits issued. This year we are up running ahead about 3% of last year, so that's again a positive trend. It's been hanging in there at about 3% for the last several months. Not again, not a torrid pace of construction, but it's certainly an improvement from what we saw a year ago. The final economic indicator slide is the rolling 12-month growth rate on our city sales tax collections. Again, this is a kind of a filtered number to get to the what I consider a more representative percentage of growth in our sales tax here locally. We look at a 24-month period of time, which is reflected on this chart, and you can see for the second half of that 24-month period, our sales taxes are running 5% ahead of the prior year. So again, that's certainly a very solid growth rate in our city sales tax revenues, and a very fortunate place, I think, for the City of Sioux Falls to be. Moving on to the budget data for the general fund. Again, this is the same chart I show you just about every month on the year-to-date revenues and expenditures for the general fund. On the left-hand side, the revenues for January through November of 2011. We are running at 89% of budget through 11 months of our year. Last year through November, we were at 82% for revenue, so that has improved relative to our budget quite a bit from a year ago. For the last month of the year, we'll need to have revenues of a little over $12 million in December to make our budget number. And by reference, last year in December, we had over $18 million in revenue booked in the general fund. So I think I can confidently say we will certainly make our total revenue budget for 2011. On the expenditure side of the chart, year to date through November, again, we are expending or have expended 85% of the budget, and a year ago we were at 80%. So we've burned through a greater percentage of our budget this year than we did a year ago. However, certainly the December is looking very, very positive in terms of the amount we're spending on snow removal, and the weather forecast is very positive, and certainly anticipate ending the year well within our budget for the general fund. This chart, in past presentations, I've included as one of our economic indicators, and I think after our discussion last month, I felt it was maybe a little more appropriate to talk about it in terms of our budget, because it really looks at a shorter time period than what I would typically look at for seeing sales tax trends. This is a year-to-date chart. You can see for, again, the green line for 2011 through November on a year-to-date basis, we're up 2.8%. And the question was asked, well, how does that relate to our budget? How much growth did we anticipate in our budget for 2011? Of course, as I mentioned last time, we did not budget for any increase in sales taxes in 2011. So one thing I've added to this chart is a little star down toward the bottom right-hand corner. In this case, we could actually have ended the year down 3.7% on our sales tax collections and still made our budget number because of the growth that we saw in 2010. So we had essentially some credit in the bank, or some growth in the bank, going into 2011. Then I added a chart this month to kind of address one of the questions that came up last month about how significant the December sales are to our city sales tax budget, and how consequential are the December sales when we look at our overall sales tax collections for a year. This chart shows you each month the amount collected that we collect as a city each month. This happens to be for the calendar year 2010, our most recently completed year, and you can see that the December of 2009 collection or sales result in the city collections going up in January. So there's always a time lag between the time sales actually occur and the time that the city receives those dollars. So you have to kind of shift those dollars back 1 month in order to get an idea of when those underlying sales actually occurred. So you can see January of 2010 accounted for 9.4% of the total sales taxes collected in 2010 for the city. And those primarily would be for sales that occurred in December of 2009. So it's not nearly as significant as some numbers you may hear in terms of the retailers and how significant their Christmas season sales are. You might hear numbers of as high as 40% of their annual sales occur in the month of December, and that's certainly not reflected in our numbers. I think largely because we tax, in South Dakota, we tax many more things than just simply over-the-counter retail sales. Utility costs, clothing, food, all those things that tends to smooth those peaks and valleys out and provides a more stable month-to-month revenue source for the city and for the state of South Dakota. So you can see the rest of the months, other than February and March, are pretty stable, right around a pretty equal share each month, about right around 8%. Other than the first quarter of the year, we see a spike in January, and then it has dropped off in February and March, and I think that's pretty typical. So that's my presentation. I would certainly be happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Questions for Director Turback? I see
Thank you.
none. Thank you. Our next presentation is an update on the Downtown Greenway project by Director of Parks and Recreation, Don Kearney, and John Jacobson.
Good afternoon, City Council members. Don Kearney with Parks and Recreation. Before we get started with John's update on Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the River Greenway, I first wanted to just thank the City Council and the Mayor and the Park Board for your support of the River Greenway project. I think if you've been down there recently, it's a beautiful improvement to our riverfront. And I think what you'll also see is that our investment slide that we have in the total dollars in Phase 1 is about $5.5 million. And I asked Erica and Darren the other day as to what kind of other investments have happened on the private side adjacent to the River Greenway as a result of our commitment to the downtown stretch of that Greenway. And to date, the total investment that has occurred or will occur as a result of that Greenway investment is over $100 million. And so really excited about what that public-private partnership has generated for our community, not to mention the beautiful improvements along the riverfront. So again, appreciate your support of the project in years past and hopefully going forward as well. Before I turn it over to John, I also did want to recognize Brad Ludens. Brad's with City Engineering. He's here today. I think he's trying to track down our presentation possibly. But also Tori Miedema. Tori's our engineer in our office that manages our capital projects and works closely with John and with Brad to manage the day-to-day operations of the project and make sure it gets built right. So I'm not sure if we have our presentation yet or not, but not yet. I wonder if you have any other business, Councilor Aguilar?
Yeah, we could go back to City Council open discussion. We'll be very flexible today.
Let's make him tap dance.
Not very good at that.
And if you could just give me a high sign if your presentation arrives. We will go back then to City Council open discussion. And I'm going to begin with Councilor Anderson Jr. You had some questions pertaining to possible budget concerns with the 2% COLA, and I've asked Director O'Toole and Director Turback to be here for that discussion.
Thank you. Bill, if I could. I'd like you just to please go back over what you stated to us last week about not putting the 2% COLA into the budget and how you're going to manage that throughout this year.
Sure. Bill O'Toole from the Human Resources Department. As the council knows, when we engaged in the collective bargaining process, that did not conclude until after the budget was finished. And as a result of that, the 2% COLA that was negotiated in the AFSCME agreement was not part of the budget process, nor were those expenses part of that process. And of course, there are other employees affected by that as well, the mid-management group, the classified group, and the appointed group. So none of that was included in the 2012 budget. It is our intent to manage those costs or absorb those costs as much as we can. As I previously indicated, I think that'll be a lot easier for some of the larger departments that have turnover and attrition issues to try to manage against that 2%. They're each aware of their bogey, if you will, in terms of the amount they're trying to manage to. The figures that we have discussed in relation to that, I don't think that anybody would be coming back in for a supplement for those figures, but everybody is aware of that, and that's certainly our intent to manage those costs. accordingly.
Taking a look at that, what is the amount that you're looking at trying to manage throughout this year?
In the general fund, that figure is about $737,000. I mean, obviously, there are other funds besides the general fund. And if you want me to recap those as well.
If you would, please.
In terms of the enterprise funds, about $230,000, and about another $50,000 in other funds such as storm drainage, internal service, and pension-related funds.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any more questions for them now. David Bitzler also sent me an email giving me a little further explanation on that also, so I don't have any further questions.
Thank you. Councilor Entenmann.
Just one thing, Bill. If I heard you correctly, you're going to manage accordingly and you don't anticipate any additional supplemental appropriation request. Is that correct?
Well, only if we have to. Like I said, let me use an example. Public Works is probably going to be able to manage it because they've got turnover throughout the year. They've got a good number of employees that as those folks leave, there's a lag between the time you fill that position, so they'll have available 1,000 expense dollars that they can probably cover that in a given year. A department of my size, for example, we're much smaller. We have little to no turnover. I might be in a different position than somebody else come middle of the year, towards the end of the year. But if we do have to come back for a supplement, it would be more towards the back end of 2012. But I would envision it being some of those smaller departments that don't have any of those attrition kind of issues to help offset those expenses.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Director O'Toole regarding the COLA? Thank you. Other council open discussion? Seeing none and seeing that the presentation is here, we will continue with the update on the Downtown Greenway project.
Thank you for your patience. John Jacobson with Confluence. The presentation was missing on the city server somewhere, so we've tracked it down here. As you know, just to give a quick overview of everything, back in 2000, through the years 2009, 2010, we permitted all the greenway improvements, the proposed greenway improvements downtown from Falls Park all the way to Faywick Park. So phase one, which is still under construction at the moment, extends from 6th Street all the way down to 8th Street along the east side of Sharapa Place, including the new pedestrian bridge which crosses the river, and then also the west side of the river from that new pedestrian bridge south along River Tower Apartments all the way down to the 8th Street Bridge. The phase 2 area, proposed area, is indicated there along the east bank in front of the proposed Shoneman Hotel redevelopment site and where the existing river ramp sits today. Phase 1 update, essentially from a big picture point of view, the primary trail and pathway was open at the beginning of November for public use. The 8th Street steps, which come off 8th Street down to the hotel and some of the businesses along there, were also completed here at the end of November. The new pedestrian bridge was open for public crossing at the end of November as well. The remainder of the secondary wall and ramp construction continues on, and that's mainly to the north side along 6th Street for the new ADA ramps up to access that street. And then miscellaneous items such as the secondary lighting, landscaping, ornamental metal signage. Essentially, the bulk of the rest of the project will be completed by June 1st of 2012. To give you an idea of the progress that we've made on the project through the summer construction season, this is a picture of the bulk of the phase 1 area in front of Sharapa Place prior to our construction. The main thing I would point out is that down to the lower right-hand side of your picture, you'll see that kind of existing quartzite rock outcropping in the photo there. So just kind of keep your eyes on that, and then you can see the new greenway improvements along there. So that rock outcropping is still right there in your lower right-hand picture. That really gives a good idea of essentially what we've been dealing with on the construction of the project, because that bedrock goes up and down and all over the place. But also really gives you a good idea for the type of enhancements that we've made for this project. This picture is of the primary plaza and gathering area. You can see the amphitheater in the background. You can see the primary plaza area here, and then the construction, the partially completed construction of the ornamental light and interpretive piers, which are in the center of the plaza. This is a shot of the new primary pathway running north to south there, our new concrete trail, the new river wall, the new pedestrian bridge. You can see the overlooks in the middle of the pedestrian bridge. Those are essentially bump outs that as you're crossing the bridge, you can get out of the way of traffic and stand on the side and look up and down the river. That bridge is a concrete decked bridge, which is wide enough to allow parks maintenance traffic across it. And then down on the right-hand side again, you can see that same rock outcropping, the quartzite rock outcropping down to the bottom, and then you see that sandy area. The sandy area is also a new recreation point of the project. It's actually a canoe and kayak landing area. As part of the TIF funds that were allowed for the construction of Sharapa Place, there is accessible parking use as part of that development, and a lot of people portage their canoes and kayaks at that spot and get out and use that before they encounter the falls. This is just a picture that was taken here right in about the middle part of November when we opened up the trail for public use. You can see how that area is going to function. Just another view looking from the north of the primary river wall and amphitheater area. A shot up above of the amphitheater and stage and plaza area. Those linear concrete foundations that you see in the amphitheater are the basis for the stone seat walls that will be constructed here over the course of the winter. And just to kind of, again, to give you a reminder of what things were like before and after we started, this was the public access at the hotel. And to get down into the greenway, you had to walk down these old clunky metal stairs, walk through the hotel patio, and then all the way through the hotel patio, and then go down some adjacent stairs to get on the greenway. This is a picture of the partially completed steps that come off there now. There's an intermediate landing that you can, if you so choose to go onto the hotel, you can, but it also goes directly down to the greenway as well. When it's completed, it will have a stone cap and metal handrails, and there'll actually be an ornamental metal structure with greenway signage on that landing as well. This is just another picture of the kayak landing, a little bit bigger in the existing bedrock, and you can see the real light brown area there is where the bedrock occurs in the river as well. So, you know, there's a lot of spots of the river that aren't as deep as people think. It's actually quite shallow in places through there. So from an overall budget point of view, talking about phase 1 and phase 2 of the project, just as a summary, of course, you'll remember that the bulk of the project, $5 million, was funded through the Quality of Life Bond, which was in the 2009 and 2010 CIP. Of course, you're also familiar with, we received almost $2 million for the Greenway project through the Big Sioux River Environmental Trust Fund here this year, which dealt with a lot of erosion and pollution concerns on the project, which I briefed council on here earlier this year. And then we also had about $120,000 in private donations in 2011. And then in 2012, we have a little bit over $1 million in the CIP. So our total phase 1 and phase 2 project budget is just a little bit over $8 million. Our current phase 1 project cost is just a little bit around $5.5 million. And then our phase 2 project budget will be about $2.5 million. Our phase 2 project is, like I mentioned, is going to consist of the area right along the new hotel redevelopment site and where the river ramp is at. If you look at that diagram closely, You can see the river ramp are those light gray lines that cross the river. So you can see a lot of our project occurs underneath where the ramp currently sits. And as part of this overall planning and design of the Greenway, of course, it was proposed that the river ramp disappear. And then our project will essentially consist of new accessibility ramp construction that comes down from 8th Street. From 8th Street. If you remember, there's the steps on the north side that does not allow for wheelchair access and those types of things. So this south portion is our ramp access. Also, there'll be construction of new river walls, just like we have in the first phase, to help stabilize the shore bank, and also the construction of a secondary plaza area for additional interpretive signage and those sorts of things. So the design of Phase 2 is currently underway. Obviously, as I've stated, the river ramp needs to be removed in order for us to move ahead with the Phase 2 construction. Our coordination with the adjacent landowners is ongoing. We've been meeting with them for a number of months now. And our Phase 2 project is scheduled to be bid in May of 2012. With construction complete in June 2013. And as I mentioned before, our project budget is about $2.5 million. Just to give you an idea of the existing conditions there, this is a picture just to the south of the 8th Street Bridge of the river ramp. Obviously, aesthetically, you can see the impact that the ramp has on the river. This is the current accessible steps that come off the 8th Street Bridge on the south side. This is the way the public gets down to the Greenway. I'm willing to bet those steps are older than I am. And then, of course, what underneath the downtown river ramp looks like, and kind of a gateway into this portion of downtown. Not very welcoming. And then this is a picture to the south of our project area. This shows the old railroad bridge, which is currently being used as a pedestrian crossing, and our project will essentially stop right at that. Our Phase 2 project will stop right at that bridge. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for John or Don? Quiet group today. I see none.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the update. I now would entertain a motion to go into executive session for personnel matters pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2, Section 1, and to consult with legal counsel pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2, Section 3.
So moved, Rolfing.
Second, Erpenbach.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are now going into executive session.